All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about something that's got everyone buzzing, and honestly, a little confused: Pi coin. The big mystery we're going to unpack today, using our source material as our map, is where does its value actually come from? Now, the analysis we're looking at has a pretty wild and for sure controversial answer, so let's dive into its logic.
And this question, man, it hits the nail right on the head. It's the central paradox, right? You can mine this stuff on your phone, just tap a button, but you can't officially go and trade it anywhere. So the billion-dollar question is, how can it possibly have any value? This is the exact puzzle that the source material we're looking at claims to have solved. Okay, so to even start to wrap our heads around this, the analysis we're digging into says we need to stop thinking about Chi's value as just one single number. Instead, it frames it as a tale of two values. The idea is that these two different kinds of value are happening at the exact same time, and you've got to see both to get the full picture.
So here's how the source breaks it down. On one hand, you've got internal value. Think of this as what the coin is worth inside its own little world, how people use it, the services it gets you. On the other hand, there's the external value. This is all the speculative noise you see on outside exchanges, basically just IOUs. Now this is the kicker. The argument we're looking at says only that internal value is the real deal. Why? Because the people who made Pi, the core team, they don't even acknowledge that outside trading. All right, so if we're supposed to just ignore all that external market stuff, like the source tells us to, then how in the world do you figure out the internal value? Well, the analysis says there's actually a formula for it, a kind of key, if you will, to unlocking the whole logic. And here it is, super simple. Value equals scarcity plus utility. I mean, this is Econ 101, a really fundamental principle. And according to this text, the entire case for Pi having any real value is built on these two big ideas. So to really get it, we've got to pull them apart and look at each one. Let's start with scarcity. Pillar number one, programmed scarcity. So the whole argument here starts with the idea that Pi's value is anchored in one thing. It's designed from the ground up to be a limited, scarce resource. So how do they do that? The source points to four key things that are supposed to make Pi scarce. First up, a limited supply. There's a hard cap, a maximum number of coins that can ever exist. Second, controlled circulation. This means most of the coins are locked away, so they can't just flood the market. Then there's what the source calls ecosystem purity. Basically, they're actively trying to protect the internal value from all that outside IOU speculation. And last but not least, growing demand. You've got millions of users, the pioneers, and that creates some pretty classic supply and demand pressure. So, the bottom line here is that none of this is by accident. The source material is really clear on this. The scarcity is a deliberate, intentional feature. It's supposedly baked right into the system's DNA to protect its value and help it grow from the inside. Okay, but being rare isn't enough to make something valuable, right? I mean, a rock in my backyard is unique, but it's not worth much. That brings us to the other half of the equation, practical utility. This is arguably the trickier part. The big question is, what can you actually do with a Pi coin? What gives it a real-world purpose? Well, the source we're looking at says the utility comes from three big things. First, you've got this built-in global market. We're talking millions of users who could be customers or business partners. Second, payment integration. Now, this is interesting. The analysis claims there are hints in Pi's actual code that point to future tie-ins with big names like Apple Pay and Mastercard. And third, the infrastructure itself. The argument is that this isn't just a coin, it's a whole ecosystem with tools for AI, smart contracts, and really solid user verification, KYC. And all of that leads to a pretty powerful claim. The idea is that owning Pi isn't just like having digital money in your wallet. It's more like holding a key that unlocks an entire digital economy. It's your ticket, your access pass to everything happening inside that closed system. Okay, so we've got the two pillars, scarcity and utility. With that foundation laid, the source material makes its boldest, and let's be honest, its most mind-blowing claim. It puts a very specific and very, very high number on Pi's value. They call it the global consensus value, or GCV. So, this is it. This is the moment where all that theory, the scarcity, the utility, the whole closed ecosystem thing, it all gets boiled down to one single number. The analysis poses the ultimate question. Based on this logic, what is one Pi coin really worth? And the number they land on is $314,159. Whoa. Now hold on. The source is absolutely adamant that this is not a market price. You're not going to see this on some exchange. It's presented as this global consensus value, a number that comes purely from that internal logic we've been talking about, the scarcity and the utility. So you're probably asking, how on earth do you justify a number like that? Well, the source immediately tries to reframe the whole conversation. The argument goes like this. You're not looking at the price of a coin. Forget that. Instead, think of it as the investment cost for a business or even a person to get access to what they're calling the economy of the future. Okay, so let's bring this all together. What's the final takeaway from this whole line of thinking? The source basically positions pi as a kind of master key, and it has a very different message for the two main groups of people involved. And you can see that split right here. For pioneers, the everyday folks mining on their phones, the message is what you have is rare. It's a protected asset, and it's shielded from all that crazy speculation out there. But for companies, the pitch is totally different. For them, getting pi at this super high consensus value isn't about buying crypto. No, it's positioned as the strategic cost of entry, the price of admission to get into this brand new, ready-to-go digital economy. And that's where the source material leaves us, right back at a huge provocative question. When you look at this whole framework, this idea of program scarcity combined with all that built-in utility, the analysis really wants us to ask ourselves, is Picoin just another crypto? Or could it actually be the master key to a whole new way of doing things, a new financial era? And for now, well, that's a question nobody has the answer to.